Ziyu's conquest of other mountains officially began, with Laya Mountain being the first target. There was hardly any greenery there. It was mostly rocky terrain. Indeed, there were very few plants. On one of the rocks, a small cave could be seen, and inside the cave were where red ants stay. Suddenly, a yellow ant's leg appeared in the red ant den. The yellow ant looked tiny but carried an air of arrogance as it boldly marched into the midst of the red ants. Who could be more brazen than Flash? It barged into someone else's home without so much as a greeting, already looking down on them for being weak. "Follow me, and you'll gain great power." One red ant, clearly annoyed, lunged at it, only to be immediately smacked down with a cracked head. As the biggest red ant collapsed, the others retreated. "What a waste of time," Flash said, raising its voice to address the whole colony. "Listen up. The order I received is this. Those who refuse submission will die. Ants are no exception. Choose life or death." From behind the worker ants, a queen ant emerged, looking more like a spider with a head full of bristly hair, downright creepy. The queen glanced at Flash, saying, "Oh my, a distinguished guest. Kids, bring some tea for our visitor." The tiny ant was certainly both brash and rude, negotiating with ants while speaking human language. Who wouldn't be annoyed? Look at Golden Monkey, who was currently chattering with the whole monkey troop in a highly professional manner. Ki. Now that was what we call diplomatic. Still, there was something unusually dangerous about it. The chattering went on until the entire monkey troop started howling. They were making a racket like monkeys tend to do, but since they were actually monkeys, I'm not sure how else to describe it. The troop seemed to object to Golden Monkey's chattering, but the Monkey King remained unperturbed, as if considering it all carefully. The Monkey King was clearly smarter than the rest. Surely, it would know what choice to make. Honey Badger, on the other hand, was all about brute force, no negotiations whatsoever. After taking a punch, they had no choice but to follow. The last of the trio, Wild Boar, took an approach like Golden Monkey's, though it was a bit more tense. The Wild Boars looked anything but friendly, making you hope that the negotiations would work. If they refused to submit, killing them would be difficult. White Tiger didn't bother seeking out a tiger clan to negotiate with, partly because tigers don't live in packs, and partly because, as the king of beasts, it wasn't about to negotiate. It took Honey Badger's approach of fight first, ask questions later, though who knows what kind of mutant creature it was after this time. Something like a Komodo dragon that also kind of looked like a fish. On a large thorny branch, Mantis knelt, hands clasped over its chest, and called out, "Mother." It bowed to the other mantises, who looked at it with obvious disdain. Mantis wasn't fazed and added, "I have a wife now." Whoops, wrong line. It was supposed to say, "I have returned." Its mother, the Mantis Queen, looked like a fat caterpillar, probably from overeating her husbands. Judging by her sour expression, you had to wonder if she'd end up devouring her own son, too. The reason all of Ziyu's spirit beasts were out recruiting allies from distant mountains was clear. After the battle with humans, he recognized that their numbers were a critical weakness, and expanding his forces was essential. He wasn't worried about loyalty, though. With life essence in his possession, every beast was bound to him. Upon reaching rank 3, flowers had started growing on his head again, but Bull Demon wasn't around to snack on them. An idea suddenly struck him, causing his eyes to light up, though they were usually bright. Using his roots, he fashioned a snake shape and brought the flower down to the underground tunnel. "Here, have some herbs." Without a question, Qingzhao popped the herbs into his mouth and chewed, his strength surging and spirit energy radiating from him. This was an elemental flower, capable of transforming a body into pure elemental form. Qingzhao wasn't naturally earth-aligned, but he had a neutral element, which allowed him to adapt to any form. Instead of giving the earth flower to someone lightning-aligned, it made more sense to give it to Qingzhao, whose versatility could maximize its powers. Qingzhao's strength erupted, his body transforming into a larger form with more hair, even with rocks on his wrists. Just one bite had propelled him to rank 1, allowing him to shift to the earth element with an affinity for manipulating the ground and creating tremors. He now had 4 special skills, forming earth spears from stone, tearing the ground apart, blending seamlessly into the earth to avoid physical damage, and enhancing his defensive abilities, perfect for reinforcing structures. As he took in this new power, Qingzhao was shocked. If he'd had this strength back when fighting that vampire, things would have gone so much smoother. "Looks like everything's in place. Get used to it. We'll be relying on you from now on." It sounded like a compliment, but it was actually the prelude to assigning him a new KPI for digging. In the past, Qingzhao had come to Ziyu seeking power and was turned down. Now, Ziyu was granting him that power freely. Overwhelmed with gratitude, Qingzhao knelt, pledging his undying loyalty. This wasn't merely a gift of strength. It was a sign that Ziyu had accepted and trusted him, something he had never experienced before. Once he was done with his underlings, he immediately emerged from the depths of the earth. He activated his power-up system and chose the earth element to absorb and reach level 2, with a current evolution point of 12,000. The system asked if he wanted to spend 10,000 points to upgrade the earth element to level 3, and of course, he agreed. After sacrificing 10,000 points, leveling up his earth element to 3, he used his roots to break through the surrounding hills, relentlessly destroying the ground and crushing it to dust. Thanks to the now loosened ground, he could lift entire trees with his roots, though dirt and sand continued pouring down, but that still wasn't enough. Ziyu wildly whipped the earth with his roots, sending dirt flying everywhere. It had been a year, but now he could finally do this. Broken ground fell to form a large sand pit where he could soak his roots. Finally, he had done it. Now he could move. Now he could storm the human headquarters and give them a warning slap. How satisfying that would be. Thorn watched him with shared joy, standing by and celebrating his success. Yet she still feared humans might return. Do you think it is all right to use so much spiritual energy? Will human attack again? In just 3 days, the second wave of spirit energy would rise, and humans would definitely not come. But Ziyu would go to them. He wanted to show them he was alive, to let them know the depth of their defeat. 3 days from now, the mutant tree in this mountain range would declare his position before humanity. This encounter wouldn't be like before. His pets had met their quotas, bringing back recruits to the great tree. Those that were boars led boars. Those that were tigers but couldn't find any brought back a pack of komodos. Flash sat proudly atop the queen ant, which, having left her domain, naturally had her worker ants following close behind. Monkeys marched forward carrying monkey kings on palanquins, too arrogant to join the army without a proper entrance. The mantis brought along its entire family, while the honey badger led a crew of creatures it had battered into submission. Only the venomous ones, of course, because its body resisted toxins. Representatives of the great clans bowed before the god tree. This time, they would no longer fear humanity. For if humans hadn't been so arrogant, Ziyu wouldn't have had to go this far. Representatives from various factions expressed their allegiance to Ziyu. Though unable to greet him with hello like humans, they conveyed their commitment by roaring in Ziyu's face. With the 4 great kings present, the 4 armies would naturally follow. A buy one, get 100 free deal. The negotiation team was a roaring success. Qianqin kneeled on a willow branch with one knee, head bowed, saying, "Master, I shall forever fight for you." What she really meant was, "Don't forget me amidst these new recruits." It reminded Ziyu that she had been stuck at level 6 for a long time, and on this auspicious day, he granted her a drop of life essence to aid her evolution. Ziyu was now at rank 3, so the life essence's potency had increased tenfold. Being a plant-based life form, half of her system rooted in vegetation, Qianqin could absorb life essence more effectively than others due to their half-plant attributes. She truly was the best at absorbing it, rising to level 9 with just 1 drop. All skills were upgraded. Notably, she gained a skill called Vital Growth, allowing her to sprout a root on the ground, which would then spread into an entire forest within 5 seconds. That way, she could bring a whole city under branches with just a few breaths. "Go, Qianqin," he said. "Find more allies and bring them back." Though perhaps Qianqin was outdated, Thorn had died at the hands of Gula in a battle with humans, her entire being now transformed. From now on, her name was Thorn. Her gaze was now sharp, colder than Qianqin's softness. With this change, Ziyu had one less woman by his side. His house was filled with monsters, not a single lady. Tonight was a full moon, Ziyu gazing up at the massive moon. The atmosphere had grown heavier since his revival. No longer was there a simple willow, but a god willow tree. The recruitment of new employees didn't stop for even a second. Today, a loud explosion echoed from deep within the forest, coming from the battle of ancient crocodile. He seemed especially energized today, finally meeting an extraordinary creature besides itself. Now the crocodile could stretch its muscles a bit. Tonight, it would get some exercise with this rank 1 black porcupine. Recruitment was happening on the ground and in the sky. The white crane spun like a top, stabbing its sharp beak into another bird, sending the unfortunate creature crashing down. The crane had changed too, stronger in both power and will, standing on its defeated foe with wings spread wide, exuding pure dominance. The crane's recruitment style was rough. If a bird didn't comply, it would stomp it until it did. In a dark cave somewhere within the gloomy forest, a shadowy creature lay bathed in the moonlight. Its face was still obscured, but it was already at rank 2. It lay belly up on a rock, basking not in sunlight but in the moon's glow, while a figure watched silently from the shadows nearby. It was none other than Qingzhao from the recruitment department, and he wasn't feeling too confident. He had only just reached rank 1, while this creature was rank 2. How was he supposed to recruit it? It could cost him his life. Qingzhao silently sank into the ground, slipping away. His master could recruit this one himself. Trying to make a quiet exit while the mutant beast was still asleep, he was startled by a terrifying voice from behind. "Since you've come, why leave in such a hurry?" The mutant beast could speak human language. It wasn't only powerful but also highly alert, as it had detected Qingzhao despite his stealth and attacked. It lunged at the ground, forcing Qingzhao to jump out. Mid-air, he gritted his teeth. His situation was tense. The beast, its eyes shining like headlights, stared at him and demanded, "Who are you?" The pressure from the beast was overwhelming. It was clear it wasn't pleased with this intrusion. Would Qingzhao really have to risk his life just to meet his recruitment quota? As his fate hung in the balance, the camera swiveled away in fright, shifting to Thorn's location. Her vines extended out, and with them alone, she had decimated an entire pack of beasts, leaving them for Windwolf to carry back. Such was the life of a delivery wolf, toiling away without a single promotion despite joining early on. New recruits were led to wade through a lake infused with essence to purify them. They obediently passed under the watchful eye of the chimp. Once soaked, they glowed bright green, a sign that they had absorbed the essence, which not only increased their strength but also loyalty to ZU, helping to distinguish allies from enemies. Among the new recruits, the one that caught his eye most was the trembling rank 1 black porcupine, brought back by fourth brother. It had decent potential and unique abilities such as Lifeblood Spike, one deadly blow. "If it's that powerful, why didn't you use it when you got captured, kid?" ZU asked and got unexpected answer. "Because you have too many companions, but this move can only be used once." It had the point and seemed to be thoughtful. However, when the porcupine just heard the question, "Are you willing?" it immediately cried out, "Yes, yes, don't kill me!" It stammered before it could even finish. How could such a strong creature be so coward? Just then, he sensed something amiss. A massive source of spirit energy was approaching. 100,000, 200,000. What in the world was out there? 300,000 spirit energy, and it was a short panda, but instead of black and white, it was brown and white. The panda strolled along, singing "La La La," with Qingzhao dragging a load of red spirit stones behind him, his face showing pure exhaustion, though at least he wasn't injured. Without looking back, the panda spoke, curious about the powerful divine tree and the thousands of wild beasts gathering around it. Now we knew why Qingzhao was so worn out. The panda talked endlessly. Along the way, it rattled on about whether the 9 tails really had 9 tails, if the foolish tiger was truly foolish, or if the ants liked Thorn or the mantis more. What had Qingzhao told it? But the panda wasn't stopping there. It had a whole slew of questions lined up. Qingzhao stayed silent, ignoring the panda's rambling. In his mind, he cursed. "It's so annoying, but I can't beat it." No worries, though, he thought. At least he'd made it without a scratch, proving himself a top employee. As they walked, the panda suddenly stopped. Had its jaw cramped up from talking so much? Its eyes gleamed, and it gave a sly grin. It hadn't stopped because of a cramp, but because it had spotted ZU, smirking as it asked, "Why is the divine tree hiding? Come out." A large root emerged from the earth, black like a snake but with hair, staring at the panda, wondering how this panda spoke human language so fluently. Remember, mutants didn't need human language to communicate, and learning it was no small feat. They couldn't master it on their own. "You escaped from a zoo, didn't you, panda?" It laughed. "How'd you know?" "When I escaped, loads of people chased after me, but couldn't catch me." The panda immediately wanted ZU to give it a name, probably because Qingzhao had mentioned that ZU named all the powerful beasts. But names could wait. For now, hop in, I'll take you home, ZU said. The panda refused to ride with a stranger, insisting it could roll its way there on its own. It wrapped its arms around its legs, rolling into a fluffy ball. "It will be faster this way." It sounded like this had been done hundreds of times, but then bumping into every rock in its path. After just one basic roll, its head was covered in several lumps. Fearing it might be out of breath by the time they reached the base, ZU had to carry it back. "Ah, much better," it muttered, even letting out a little cough. He was at a loss for words with this ridiculous panda. It was so sharp when it came to detecting enemies, yet so clumsy with everything else. They quickly reached the misty region, and as soon as they arrived, the panda was awestruck by the majestic, towering beauty of the willow tree. Standing in front of Ziyu's egg, it didn't hold back, pointing and yelling, "Your face is huge! Damn, what a brazen little beast!" It had just arrived and was already face-shaming him. Just because it was the first rank 2 creature here didn't mean it could act so rude. The panda, having spent a long time with humans, had learned some manners. Though it came empty-handed, it had made Qingxiao carry a gift for Ziyu. He surprisingly picked up one of the stones. A fire spirit stone? Where'd you get this? It sounded like it had stolen it from somewhere. The panda replied that there were plenty in its cave, and Ziyu was welcome to them. In return, the panda wanted to live in the bayou, where there were many friends. It liked the place. Little did it know, this was precisely where Ziyu had wanted to bring it. It didn't need to bring gifts to stay. But it also revealed that while this small panda was playful, it was generous, a trait it had picked up from humans. Feeling obliged, Ziyu set down a pot of white wine as a gift of thanks. The wine was premium monkey brew, looted by the golden monkey and now taken by Ziyu for the panda. As soon as the jar was opened, the aroma wafted out like smoke, making their mouths water instantly. The panda lifted the jar and gulped down the wine as if it were water, leaving the monkey fuming, though unable to do anything about it. Its face flushed bright red after drinking. The wine was exquisite, 10 out of 10 from the panda. Despite its goofy demeanor, the panda's strength was undeniable. A rank 2 creature with a gift for absorbing minerals to enhance itself, its abilities developed based on the minerals it absorbed. With the fire spirit stone, it could now breathe fire, had fire-resistant skin, and even possessed a fire-release technique like the Uchiha clan heirs. Moreover, prolonged absorption of minerals created an armor, solid as volcanic rock. It reduced earth elemental attacks by 50%. Its mineral absorption ability made it a force of both offense and defense. Different spirit stones would grant it different abilities, making it a challenging opponent. This strength was definitely worth keeping around. With that, Ziyu told the panda that if it genuinely enjoyed the wine and sincerely wanted to stay, he'd name it Wine Deity, ranking it as number 9 among the 9 great beasts. For those who'd forgotten, Ziyu's 9 great beasts lineup included Nine Tails as the leader, Bull Demon as second, White Tiger as third, Crocodile as fourth, Flash as fifth, and Thorn as sixth. Numbers 7 and 8 hadn't yet been filled, but 9 was now the panda, Wine Deity. Why am I 9th? Is 9 the strongest? The panda asked. Indeed, Ziyu replied seriously. 9 is the number of supremacy. He was placing the panda in a position of importance, yet the panda didn't bother listening, too busy pestering the golden monkey for more wine. Meanwhile, in humanity's highest assembly of the Federation, officials were fervently discussing the upcoming wave of spirit energy that would arrive in 2 days. This time, many lives would likely be lost. A woman with white hair asserted that this would be a historic shift for humanity. It was best to brace for an era of darkness. In 2 days, not only the deep seas and high mountains, but the cities themselves would be flooded with spirit energy. The government's mission was to ensure the city remained as stable as possible post-influx, preserving it as it was before. The senior commander ordered the dissemination of information regarding the wave of spirit energy. What's the situation with the ancient martial clans? Still not making a move? The gruff officer asked. Other officials quickly responded. Those old relics are too busy enjoying their evolution from the spirit energy to worry about humanity. These old relics likely referred to those who had successfully cultivated immortality. Ziyu would certainly be fighting them in the future. The commander looked grim, with mutant beasts in the Bayou Gorge and the threat of the spirit tide. What kind of shape would the world end up in? Spirit energy droplets began appearing more frequently, already rising from the ground. Ziyu pondered deeply. Previously, he had sealed off the mutant beast's cave after it was breached, but it hadn't done much good. Forget 2 days. At this rate, the spirit energy might flood everything by tonight. He gathered the entire army beneath him to announce that he could take them underground to evade the second spirit energy wave. But he hoped they'd endure this energy surge themselves. Failing to do so would mean their bodies would overload and explode. Ziyu issued a warning. Any who weren't confident could leave. Yet the whole legion roared, refusing to back down. Since everyone agreed, he wasted no time. Ziyu opened part of his trunk, letting his spirit energy flood out. His goal was to get them accustomed to excessive spirit energy, so they wouldn't be overwhelmed and die when the wave arrived. His energy spread in thick, abundant waves, and although evening was approaching, a blinding light suddenly glowed behind Lengfang. Turning around, he froze, stunned by the dazzling display before him. The energy infused the mutant beasts. Flash and the Mantis could feel power surging within them, and not only them, all the creatures were receiving energy, roaring in exhilaration. But some couldn't handle it, like a windwolf who swelled up and soon burst from energy overload. Ziyu issued one last warning. Anyone who can't handle it should leave now. Immediately, a few creatures took his advice, genuinely thankful for the honesty. This time, Ziyu made no attempt to hide his energy, and naturally the humans noticed, panicking when their scans detected the massive power surging in the ravine. It hit 800,000 and kept climbing, nearly breaking 1,000,000. Weren't the mutant beasts in the Bayou Gorge supposed to be wiped out? Every computer sounded alarms at this tremendous energy. Could it be the demon tree hadn't been destroyed? A beautiful woman ordered her staff to activate the satellite over the gorge, questioning how the tree had returned from the Earth so rapidly. Ziyu had long severed the surveillance satellites over the mountains, leaving them with no signal and no control. The woman slammed her hand on the railing. 800,000 spirit energy. What the hell? This isn't funny at all. We just lost all our forces a few days ago. How can we resist this now? Just as Li and the bearded commander had predicted, humanity could no longer control the Bayou Gorge. If they couldn't destroy the willow tree, it would only grow stronger over time. Currently, in the Bayou Gorge, Ziyu was conducting smaller energy waves to filter out weaker mutants, reaping up to 720,000 points. This also revealed several promising beasts, as those that endured his spirit energy were pushed to rank 1. He built nests for each creature that passed the test. A place where many fierce creatures could gather simultaneously would have been difficult to manage if he hadn't already reached rank 3. Among the nests, 2 creatures caught his eye, a mammoth and a tyrannosaurus, both carrying atavistic genes. Not only had the mammoth's ancient genes awakened, but so had those of the ancient apex predator. If the tyrannosaurus returned to its golden era of hunting, would it be at top of food chain? There would be more atavistic genes surfacing over time. Dinosaurs and gorillas might eventually roam the supermarkets. Besides these 2 special cases, there were many others worth watching. He was inspecting the nests when a loud voice called from afar, "Divine Tree Master!" Following the sound, he spotted his number 1 and number 2 subordinates rushing toward him, both in perfect condition with not a scratch on them. They seemed to be doing well out there. Ziyu's face lit up. It had been ages since he'd seen the 2 of them, especially the fox, which had been gone for so long. Now it had managed to reach rank 1 on its own, boasting a grand new look along with additional talents and skills. The most noticeable change was the extra tail behind it. Ziyu asked in surprise, "You've grown another tail?" Each rank it gained added a new tail, each with unique abilities. 7 more ranks and it would reach 9 tails, the peak of all beings. Could this creature carry the ancient heritage? Bull Demon, who'd left just before everything went crazy, didn't understand the current situation, only noticing the drastic changes around him. Ziyu explained the events to the 2 of them. While Ziyu filled them in, let me show you how the area had transformed. Beneath the ravine where Ziyu rooted himself, he now towered above the valley. To the left, the trees remained lush, while on the right, he'd built an animal containment facility with numerous large nests sprouting from his roots. It was quite the sight, though a bit eerie upon closer inspection. Just as Ziyu finished explaining, Ninetails understood, realizing that humans had been driven to madness by their inability to tolerate the existence of mutant beasts. That was why they needed to establish a nation of their own. Even the normally gentle Bull Demon grasped the importance of their cause. Though the 2 had returned a bit late, their timing was perfect. With Ninetails and Bull Demon here, they'd gained 2 great generals. Tomorrow, they'd announce their decision to the entire world. Ziyu continued sending small spirit energy waves to the beasts in Bayou Gorge, helping them adapt. When a powerful sound echoed, the world was suddenly blanketed in 5-colored light, shaking the entire Earth. All life on the planet, including humans, land-dwelling creatures, plants, and even sea animals, fell silent in anticipation. As the true spirit wave struck, many humans writhed on the streets from energy overload, most unable to withstand it. Those who couldn't bear it crumbled to dust, scattering with the wind. The few who survived the absorption grew even stronger. The flow of spirit energy in the forests and mountains intensified, leaving weaker creatures unable to bear it. However, the mutants in the Bayou Gorge had grown accustomed to it, calmly absorbing the energy-rich air. Ziyu's own energy added to the mix, amplifying the spirit density even further. Every creature in the Bayou Gorge, including humans and half-humans, absorbed the energy with wild enthusiasm. While the mutants quietly soaked up the power, weaker beings elsewhere couldn't handle the influx and instinctively fled toward areas with lower energy levels, specifically human cities. Nations across the world declared states of emergency as beasts poured out of forests, forcing them to fortify defenses. In the country of Bucks, soldiers on the high walls unleashed constant fire on the mutant beasts charging in. They fought fiercely, but fortune didn't favor them. An enormous elephant raised its massive foot before the soldiers, smashing the right wall and opening a path for the beasts to swarm in and tear into the humans. The city in Gaji was infiltrated by wolves. The land of Bangor City was overrun by insects, and even the Federation couldn't escape this historic event. Just as the mutants were breaking into City A bright dot appeared in the distance, approaching rapidly. As it neared, it became clear it was a real missile, heading straight for the city. The explosion wiped out both the mutant beasts and the infrastructure. The stats department reported that they'd successfully eliminated 80% of the mutants within the city, but there were still 5 areas under attack. Another nuclear bomb? The commander broke into a cold sweat. One radioactive blast could ruin the land for generations. Dropping 5 more might mean abandoning it entirely. Who would live in a wasteland of radiation? The world was in chaos. Yet some lunatic was in the forest filming a vlog, of all places, in Bayou Gorge. This guy had to have a screw loose. The willow tree had transformed again. No longer a fake sakura, it now glowed ethereally, as if made of spirits. The willow turned toward the fiery glow behind the great mountain range, guessing that the distant lights belonged to a human city, roughly 200 to 300 miles away. It observed humanity, and humanity observed it. Through a large screen, they saw it, large, healthy, and strong, which caused them to scream and shout in shock. The last time they'd bombarded the mountain with red explosions, they hadn't scorched it. Instead, it had grown more powerful. Now, after the spirit energy surge, it had become a towering giant. What's more, their satellites were repeatedly destroyed, leaving them unable to monitor it. But that wasn't even the biggest issue. Unlike before, the willow no longer bothered concealing its energy. The beautiful woman estimated that its spirit power had reached nearly 1.8 million, but humanity had nothing left to challenge it. The bearded man lowered his head, eyes casting a bitter glare. The information about the willow gnawed at him. This demon tree had killed too many of their people, including Lee, who had died fighting it. Even the ancient martial arts clans were no longer involved. In short, they lacked both manpower and strength, with no backup in sight. Seeing that the willow no longer hid its power, they figured it was likely 80% of confidence, treating humanity as insignificant. Its smug arrogance about being untouchable frustrated humanity immensely. Originally, they hadn't wanted to resort to nuclear weapons to avoid making the area uninhabitable. But circumstances had changed. We need to seize this opportunity to invade beasts and launch another nuclear missile. Not just some insignificant spiritual energy missile, but that one will completely obliterate on 4 mountains in Bayou Canyon. They all agreed to his plan. Tonight in the Bayou Gorge, the sky was clear and a gentle breeze blew. Just like every other night, Ziyu continued to release spirit energy for his underlings to absorb. Seeing everyone diligently training, he thought it was time to focus a bit on himself, so he opened up his system panel. First up was his mist ability, which could create illusions, concealing him and causing confusion in others. Next was his defensive skill, crystallization, and for combat, he had branches, roots, and even the ranged willow leaf blade attack, along with earth element manipulation that provided both offense and defense. After some consideration, he decided to upgrade his illusion skill. Since it was only at level 2, it lagged behind the others. Raising it to level 3 would cost 30,000 points, and with illusions combined with fog beasts, it would create a seamless mix of reality and fantasy. What to upgrade next? After filtering out countless species in his company, he had amassed many evolution points. No sense in just hoarding them. Just as everything seemed peaceful, he suddenly sensed something off. Out of nowhere, something was streaking down from the sky, all aimed directly at him. With wide eyes, he recognized them as nuclear warheads and immediately commanded his entire family of creatures to get underground. The beasts were still clueless, and he had to yell at the top of his lungs, "Move, now!" Ziyu summoned all his strength, unleashing 4 green blades into the sky. The willow leaf flying blades slashed through space and time, tearing open the sky wherever they passed. The blades struck the missiles head-on, causing all four to explode midair in a deafening, powerful display. Even underground, the tunnels couldn't escape the tremors as rocks crumbled down. Luckily, King Kong held up the ceiling with his body, sparing everyone from being crushed. The blinding flash made Ziyu squint, and although he destroyed the missiles, he still felt unsafe. Thick smoke obscured his vision. Had he truly neutralized all four missiles? Something wasn't right. The smoke suddenly parted as a fifth missile, even larger than the previous four, hurtled toward him. The first four had merely been decoys, and now this one had reached him point blank. The ensuing explosion was earth-shaking, its shockwave audible from miles away. The missile's blast flattened everything in its path, erupting once on impact, and then again, annihilating a vast area. The high-ranking officials watching the missile livestream were torn between excitement and worry. It hit the target, but was the willow dead yet? Ziyu had barely risen from the ground before the missile exploded right in his face, engulfing him in a fiery blast that seemed endless, like a massive, searing egg-shaped orb. The oppressive heat and pressure were at a nauseating level. As the observers cheered, convinced humanity had finally vanquished the willow, one analyst urged them to hold on. The explosion cleared, and at the center of the blast, something sparkled like an enormous stone. The dust had settled, and the bearded man could now see it too. Cold sweat trickled down his face as he realized the willow had cocooned itself within layers of diamond-like roots, deflecting the missile's force. The screen's image left every officer and staff member dumbfounded, mouths agape in disbelief, some wondering if they were seeing things. The roots unraveled, revealing a pair of blazing eyes within the trunk. The willow was alive, and the senior commander turned pale. Ziyu roared, "Humans!" as his roots writhed furiously, thrashing like dragons across the earth. "Is it death you seek?" Furious, Ziyu gave them an immediate warning. His wrath triggered massive earthquakes, shaking the human city even 300 miles away. After venting his rage, the ground lay in ruins around him. Ziyu panted, tired from blocking the missile and causing the earthquake. He calmed down, recognizing that his crystallization skill had proven invaluable, fully absorbing the impact. It had also withstood half the missile's extreme heat, though the sensation of nearly being scorched was still unpleasant. "Master, are you all right?" someone asked. "Other than a bit of shock, I'm fine. Let's go," Ziyu suddenly declared, startling Shao Qing. Where were they going? To the humans, of course, for a little chat. If they wanted to go all out, Ziyu would meet them blow for blow. They'd tried to kill him twice. Now it was time for payback. The beasts swarmed out of the forest, flooding toward human territory. Those who could fly soared, climbers scaled, and walkers marched, all of them clinging to the city walls. The humans didn't take it lying down and fought back fiercely. Larger flying creatures could be shot down due to their size, but smaller, quicker ones, like mutant bees, posed a serious problem, easily eliminating soldiers. With bees attacking from above and larger beasts breaking through walls below, mutants flooded through the breaches, trampling over humans. But humanity wasn't ready to surrender just yet. Suddenly, a figure with extraordinary speed and strength lunged forward, taking down a massive mutant. It was an elderly, silver-haired superhuman with a scarred eye, known as Old Li. He was powerful and, incidentally, the father of the late Li. Wielding a huge blade, he was the sole defender of this section of the wall. Though his body was robust, Old Li wasn't young anymore. Yet he took on the entire horde below to allow his troops above to keep firing. Gritting his teeth, he muttered, "Damn, this sudden earthquake. The walls are cracked everywhere." But this wasn't a random quake. It was the price of firing 5 missiles in the first place. Now they had to deal with the aftermath. If the soldiers weren't reminded of this, they might have forgotten to stay alert. They unleashed a hail of bullets, rock and debris flying as weaker beasts who couldn't withstand the spirit surge flooded in, giving humans a fighting chance. Their overwhelming firepower allowed them to hold for the moment. They'd worry about running out of ammo later. "Don't let them near the wall," one soldier shouted, as gunfire rained down on the beasts, choking the air with dust as creatures dropped like flies. Inside the wall, Old Li fought valiantly, holding off 3 or 4 mutants at once. It was tough, but he managed. Sweating profusely, Old Li struggled as the cracked wall forced him to fight more monsters than ever. He noted that these creatures were only about level 8 individually, but there were countless of them. If they couldn't push them back, the city's safety was at risk. Knowing this, Old Li fought on, despite his age. In the middle of the battle, another quake struck, forcing him to leap. Earthquakes were terrible for humans, as they only caused more cracks in the walls. But why did that wolf look so nervous? After the quake, shouldn't it have rallied the pack to charge? Why was it turning to flee? Not just the wolf. All the mutants were retreating, leaving the area beneath the walls empty, as if they'd never attacked. The soldiers on the wall were moved to tears, exclaiming, "We've held the city." It was sudden, but still worth celebrating. They assumed the quake had scared off the beasts, which made little sense, but who cared? They'd survived. Only Old Lee felt an ominous sense of unease. He was right. Just a few minutes after the beasts retreated, a thick fog suddenly rolled in. According to their forecast review, tonight was supposed to be clear. No clouds, no rain, not a chance of sun. Yet here came a fog denser, reducing visibility to less than 5 meters. One wrong move, and you could stumble right into trouble without even realizing it. But the fog was only the opening act of this legendary tour, as one soldier soon realized. Massive roots stomped onto the ground. Main performer ZU had arrived, bringing his whole setup with him. There were backing vocals, little dancers, and a team scattering pedals for that dazzling effect. The stage? 100% natural, eco-friendly, made from pure willow branches. Tonight, ZU had brought his entire spectacle to visit his fans in the city. After all, those loyal fans had gone out of their way to fire 5 firework-like missiles in his honor. Now they could enjoy the show up close. Old Lee, far from a fan of ZU, was nearly floored. Unlike the mutants from earlier, ZU's studio exuded a boundless sea of spirit energy. Just a glance at that eerie, glowing egg, and Old Lee already knew the outcome. Anyone who fought this would be a fool. Old Lee quickly shouted, "Get out of here now!" The soldiers stood frozen in place as he ordered them to initiate a city-wide evacuation alert. Anyone with a vehicle should drive, anyone without one should run, escape as far as they could by any means possible. ZU had painstakingly brought his whole stage for this fan meet, only for the old man to tell everyone to run off. With no crowd, who was going to cheer and scream for him? He activated Heaven's Tree Descent. But instead of descending, the roots shot up from the ground, lifting sections of the city wall before extending into the city itself. Countless roots intertwined, forming a natural cage, trapping everyone inside, fan or foe alike. The townsfolk gaped in awe, mouths agape. Calmly, ZU commanded, "Capture everyone in this city." It was actually merciful to just capture them. His multi-species workforce immediately sprang into action, each one a model employee. The Golden Monkey led its squad, rushing the crowds, their growls and the people's desperate pleas creating an epic remix for the show's opening. Bull Demon, unlike the monkey, didn't need to chase anyone. It simply used gravity to pin humans to the ground. The nameless spider worked efficiently, ensnaring a dozen people at once. If only it got to eat them, it might put on a few pounds. In another corner, a crowd was surrounded by towering flames, with no route of escape. From a high perch, Ninetails glared down at them with contempt, eyes full of disdain not only for humans, but even for the mutant beasts themselves. People on the streets were, of course, quickly rounded up by the beasts, with only a few humans hiding on high floors yet to be discovered. One man, wrapped tightly in a blanket, kept reassuring himself, "I'll be fine. I'm on the 90th floor." Just as he was about to die from fear, hello, a snake-like root head smashed through his window, peeking in. Not only that man, but many others hiding on high floors were soon dragged outside by ZU's roots. Thousands of people were pulled from skyscrapers, hanging from the fibrous roots and screaming from the top of their lungs. After the wall explosion by ZU, Old Lee was somehow still alive. He scrambled up from the rubble, yelling, "Die, demon tree!" He shot directly at ZU's face, but ZU just tilted his head like, "What's this? A mosquito bite?" Holding the mosquito up, ZU watched as Old Lee buzzed furiously. "Humanity won't leave you be." ZU smirked, glancing around at the chaos he had caused. Who exactly wasn't letting whom be? Still, he had to admit, this old guy had guts. Here he was, face to face with a colossal sentient tree, and he was still yelling. Most people were too scared to even breathe. Old Lee shouted, "We'll wipe you all out." ZU stared at him. Hadn't humanity already wiped out all of Bayou Gorge once? But now, here they all were, risen from the grave, the memory of that massacre still fresh. Old Lee hadn't been part of that battle, so when the talking tree's words hit, his face turned pale. ZU pressed on. "This time, we're here to establish our place." He wasn't just here to avenge Bayou Gorge. He wanted humanity to understand that all life on Earth wasn't theirs to decide. He jabbed a root toward Old Lee, who couldn't dodge or defend himself. Blood spurted, and Old Lee likely didn't survive. ZU stood outside the city, leisurely spreading his roots all over. The entire area was under his control now, so the city's supermarkets and all the food they contained were in effect property of his company. The fruits were delicious, much to the delight of the chimps and Qing Zhao, who quickly decided, let's move all the goods out of this city. With everything conveniently available, Qingzhao focused on food, while Thorn turned her attention to clothing. After all, she was a lady. A bit of style was in order. Still, was she planning to swing from trees in a ball gown with the monkeys? Xiaoqing appeared beside Ziyu and asked what he intended to do after seizing the city. He replied, we'll wait for them to negotiate. Ziyu wasn't here to slaughter and rage, but to initiate a negotiation. It made sense. Oppressing with bloodshed wouldn't ensure long-term control. Just look at how colonial powers manage their territories. Excessive suppression would only fuel human anger, and he didn't want to be a tyrant. Xiaoqing, combining her knowledge of geography and strategic thinking, began analyzing the situation. First, Bayou Gorge's terrain was naturally defensive, making it hard to attack. Meanwhile, humans preferred offense over fortification, favoring all-out attacks rather than wall reinforcements. Maintaining such a position wouldn't benefit Ziyu in the long term. Xiaoqing lifted a stone with her powers, carving a strategic map. To prevent being boxed in, she suggested expanding their territory. Using the newly occupied city as a base, they would push northward to the river basin, claiming even the desert along the way. Once the area was secured, he'd become the undisputed ruler, shrouding it in fog and striking down anyone who dared approach. Although this would shrink the Federation's territory by about an eighth, as long as her master held back from further attacks, they wouldn't dare challenge him. Right, exactly. Just as I was thinking, or, well, about to think, Ziyu said, approving her plan. But we still have to be evil, he muttered. Finally, next step is just wait for humans' reaction. Ziyu held everyone captive, but released one person to drive out a message, Old Li. Surviving yet again, Old Li was hauled up by Demon Tree, who pointed a root at him and demanded he hand over whoever planned the nuclear strike on Bayou Gorge. And if I don't? Old Li retorted. Ziyu calmly replied, then the 200,000 people in this city will go from living in nests to buried underground. Old Li gritted his teeth as he drove off, furious and swearing. It wasn't a matter of whether he wanted to or not. With thousands of lives in his hands, he had no choice. Xiaoqing watched him fade into the distance, wondering if the Federation would truly hand someone over. For Ziyu, it didn't even have to be the real mastermind behind the nukes. What mattered was humanity's attitude. Even if they sent a disposable scapegoat, it would mark the first time humans bowed before the mutant beasts. Sacrificing civilians to uphold the government's pride would only earn them the people's ire. Ziyu displayed a menacing expression, confident that regardless of the Federation's choice, they'd lose face. Xiaoqing said nothing, noting that while her master was occasionally clueless, he had a deep strategic mind, one of the reasons he was in charge. Meanwhile, in another region, specifically the coastal land of Sakura, two mutant beasts were using a city as their battleground. One beast came from the sea, the other from the land. The sea creature claimed that eating fish was best, while the mountain creature insisted grass was better, and they clashed furiously. Elsewhere, under the moonlight, a massive wolf and its pack silently observed the changing landscape. In Forbidden Zone Number 1, a giant white rhino drank from a stream. Underground, another king reigned, a mutated groundhog with two massive front teeth, notorious for never using a spoon to eat. All these fierce creatures would eventually join Ziyu, uniting with him for an inevitable showdown in the future. But that was still in the future. For now, he was focused on occupying the city. This fan meet had brought in plenty of evolution points, totaling 1.6 million when combined with those he'd gained in the gorge. While checking his system stats, the mammoth and Tyrannosaurus responded to his call and arrived. Both bore atavistic genes, exuding incredible strength, and Ziyu wasn't about to overlook such valuable recruits. This time, Ziyu called the mammoth and dinosaur over to grant them life essence and officially promote them. From now on, the mammoth was named Glacier, the seventh of the 9 great beasts, and the dinosaur was Kuizhou, the 8th. Ziyu sprinkled life essence over them, saying, "Receive my essence of life. Solidify your essence." After receiving the essence, Glacier didn't change much. Now a rank 1 mutant beast, his natural gifts included sturdy tusks. His special abilities featured extraordinary strength and a powerful stomp, along with shockwave attacks and a dense, protective coat of fur. As for Kuizhou, he turned green with new spots on his body. Although only level 9, his potential was far from ordinary. His first trait was a savage ferocity beyond most beasts. His abilities included an intimidating presence that could frighten opponents into losing their nerve, a hide as tough as armor, razor-sharp claws, a mighty tail, and a skill that boosted his power with each kill. Truly a fearsome warrior. Now the 9 great beasts were complete, ready to defend or conquer as needed. Meanwhile, the humans had shifted from round-table meetings to rectangular ones, perhaps due to the rising tension. The wrinkled old man frowned. That mutant tree moves, brings powerful beasts, and attacks human cities. Think it's bold, does it? Humanity once acted the same, striking first without a word. The High Commander asked who brought the news. The subordinate didn't name names, simply replying, "Currently lying in infirmary." Old Lee hadn't slept in 3 days, body battered all over, but he was still alive. The side-parted official mused, "This demon tree is peculiar. It attacks cities, but it doesn't kill people. It holds them hostage instead. Calling it a beast seems wrong. Calling it human being almost makes more sense." Facing Ziyu's demands, the High Commander realized that anything they did would likely be fruitless, unsure of what decision to make. The bearded commander, never one for hesitation, shouted, "No need for useless debate. I ordered the nuclear strike, so I'll take responsibility. Better to sacrifice human pride than 200,000 lives." Noble words, and given the options, sparing the civilians was indeed the better choice. "This demon tree's here for vengeance. You'll die," warned another officer. The bearded commander wasn't afraid, even wanting to speak with Ziyu directly. He had many doubts in his mind that needed to speak to the demon tree. After several days, the negotiation convoy arrived, greeted by massive roots blocking the way like a fortress gate. The bearded commander, seated inside, was awestruck by the scene. Seeing it firsthand was different than hearing reports. No one would believe it otherwise. Ziyu waited, thinking, finally, they're here. Taking charge of communications was someone from Supernatural Academy, a young man who hadn't fought in the previous battle due to his family connections. This time, he was escorting the negotiation team, and he spoke into the roots, announcing the arrival of the Federation's commander, hoping they'd be granted passage. After the humans' greeting, the roots parted to open a door. He couldn't hold the curse under his breath at the arrogance of a mere demon tree. Confident after his own recent advancement to rank 1, he was ready to challenge Ziyu if necessary. How amusing that thought. But quickly, his courage began to waver, as even looking at the chimps made him tense, his body stiffening. The chimps, eager to assert their dominance, roared, and that was enough to unnerve him. One even stomped, nearly causing him to stumble. The mutant beasts of Bayou Gorge showed humans blatant disdain. Even the usually docile bull demon lifted his head high. It was no surprise. After what humanity had done, these beasts had no respect left to show. Facing Bull Demon, the young man looked minuscule, and a single downward glance from Bull Demon sent him into a panic. Wait up! We're here to negotiate," he stammered. "All right, come with me," Bull Demon replied, indicating his massive horns and signaling him to follow. Another person, shocked to hear a beast speak, struggled to comprehend. They didn't just talk, they judged. Up above, that proud fox hadn't lowered her chin since entering the city. He quickly reconsidered. His earlier thoughts of a fight were just wishful thinking. These creatures were far scarier than he'd imagined. Following the bull demon were 2 cars carrying the negotiation team, moving slowly amidst the roars of countless different beasts. They were loud, asserting their status before humans who were now completely different from before. Deeper in were more familiar faces from Bayou, looking down at the convoy with even greater disdain. Experiencing death had made them forever uneasy with humans. Finally arriving at Ziyu's location, the bearded commander stepped out, adjusting his tie to calm his nerves, though his anxiety was palpable. Like Master, like minions, Ziyu barely glanced at the humans, looking down at them with only half an eye. Beads of sweat formed on General Zhao's forehead as he looked up. Was this truly the demon tree that had decimated 50,000 troops? This oppressive aura, was this the monstrous force that Li had once faced? Amid the tension, the citizens held in cages nearby noticed him and cried out, "General Zhao, save us! Please, General Zhao." So the bearded man's name was Zhao Yunyi. The city's people, all held captive, began shouting for help as soon as they saw the government's arrival. Of course, they expected rescue. Wasn't that the whole reason General Zhao had come to negotiate? While he'd felt fearful earlier, the general now steeled himself, declaring his identity to Ziyu and taking full responsibility for the nuclear strike. Zhao Yunyi, Supreme General of the Federation, to send such a high-ranking official that showed some sincerity. Drawing courage from the people's desperate cries, General Zhao straightened, glaring up at Ziyu and shouting, "If you have an issue, take it out on me. Release the people of Maple Leaf City immediately." Excuse me? Was he giving orders to Ziyu? Did this general even understand the situation he was in? Humanity was in a vulnerable position, and he stood right in the heart of enemy territory. Really, he needed to check himself. Without needing the master intervention, his pets had already started cursing on his behalf. The likes of Windwolf, a giant snake, some boars, basically, all of his strange beasts were hollering loudly. The extraordinary guards accompanying General Zhao couldn't help but think, good heavens, what is this old man doing? Does he want to get the whole team battered by these beasts? One of them gritted his teeth, eyeing the scene around him. Even the weakest here were level 6 beasts. And that's not counting the ranked beasts. Dealing with hundreds of level 6 ones was already overwhelming. Especially that spotted dinosaur. It looked calm and indifferent to the chaos around it, but he couldn't shake the feeling it was staring right at him. The killing intent it gave off was terrifying. If Ziyu hadn't been restraining it, it would have surely torn that human apart in 1 second. Just looking at Ziyu's crew left him trembling, and who knew how terrifying Ziyu himself was? Moments ago, he'd thought about striking him, but now the young man had grown wise. His fear was evident, and his mind spun. Damn it, if we anger him, we'll all die here. We've got to stop that crazy commander. Chill out a bit, man. Can we just let it slide? It's maddening, but I've got to say this. No, it's a request. Please let them go. Don't involve innocent citizens in this. He looked down and shot a question at General Zhao. Why do you think things escalated to this point? Nothing bad happens without a cause. People bring it on themselves. Whatever karma you're facing, you know exactly where it came from. Pointing a root at General Zhao, he said he didn't care if the man was behind the nuclear attacks or not. He didn't know if he'd come to smack humanity in the face later, but General Zhao and all of humankind needed to remember this well. He pressed a root right up against Zhao's mechanical eye, warning him that if he ever found humans invading his territory again, rivers of blood would flow. He might have been addressing General Zhao, but he meant those words for all of humankind. As for the people in this city, since humans had backed down, he'd let them go, but they'd have to come to pick them up. From now on, he declared, this city was a part of the Fog Kingdom. Any human who set foot here would do so at their own risk. With that, he smashed the camera, cutting off the feed. General Zhao stormed back to headquarters, slamming the table. Damned creature, that arrogance. Forming his own kingdom? This is outrageous. Someone commented, it knows that we are watching. Those words are obviously said towards us. The other commanders watched the main screen, discussing. Those words were clearly meant for us, and the strength on the beast's side is overwhelming. Not only do they have ancient mammoths, but dinosaurs too. Who could even go against them? And that's without counting the other ferocious beasts. Suddenly, the High Command issued an order grounding General Zhao, startling him. They probably feared his fiery temper might cause chaos, as the situation was too precarious. Wolves roamed the mountains, beasts swam along the shores, and now, with this fog kingdom, the nation was encircled by strange beasts. The High Command had better foresight. With Ziyu open to negotiations, peace seemed the best option. As he turned to leave, he reminded General Zhao once more, we've lost this one. Whether you accept it or not, old Zhao, that's the truth. Military vehicles transported people out of the Fog Kingdom's borders, marking the end of the negotiation. Time to rest. Ziyu handed the city's management over to Monkey Group, who accepted eagerly. On the ground, Qingzhao had amassed piles of human supplies, but there was still more left to gather. Ziyu told him, there's plenty of time. Move slowly. Our work here is done for today. The show was over, and it was time to head back. Not only had they successfully met the fans, but they'd also received a good haul of gifts before going back to the mountain. The Bayou Canyon now lay in ruin, desolate and barren, an empty wasteland without trees, flowers, and with ashen soil. Then again, after taking 5 atomic bombs, what ground could survive? But this place still felt most comfortable to Ziyu. He sank his roots into the earth, right at his usual spot. The hard, dry land wasn't a problem. He could fix it easily. All he had to do was pour spiritual energy into his roots. Like pumping vitamins into the earth, wherever his roots reached, life sprouted again. In no time, the land was lush and green. Making plants and flowers bloom was nothing, just a breath, and it was perfect. With another breath, Thorn came flying back, riding White Tiger alongside White Crane. Since when did tigers know how to fly? But whatever, Thorn seemed to have urgent news for him, and it was obviously good news. Specifically, both creatures had learned human speech. Quite a shock for a teacher like him. While Thorn was astonished, Ziyu was more like psychologically shaken. The crane didn't matter much, but that dumb tiger speaking? Now that was a miracle. Of course, it was a miracle. Now say something to scare him, kids. All three were thrilled that they could speak. The dumb tiger roared, then spat out a broken sentence in human language, a mix of mangled words and grammar. Go find the divine god tree. apologies, everyone is going to die. Not exactly the most appropriate thing to say right now, but hey, it was human speech. Thorn was proud. Not only the tiger, but the crane could speak too. The crane spread its wings and declared, I, your father, will definitely not let you go. Impressive, very impressive. But why did that sound so familiar? Ziyu, on the other hand, thought it sounded strange. Then he realized these were the phrases they'd picked up when they fought humans. Ziyu snapped, Hey, don't tell me these are the only things you know how to say? All three of them froze, as if he'd hit the nail on the head. The two dumb ones kept repeating the same lines. They could talk, all right, but only in one line. Dumb as ever, leaving their master with a headache. And the crane. Yes, that one with its wings spread wide. He looked at it with a mix of pity and disdain. I thought the white tiger was dumb enough, but I never thought you'd be the same. The white crane stood frozen, while the dumb tiger and Thorn were beyond saving. They were too hopelessly dumb. Ziyu unleashed a torrent of insults at the white crane, verbally roasting it in plain sight. Stuff like how he barely remembered its existence, or often forgot it was even there, and if it disappeared, he wouldn't even notice. And this whole rant ended up teaching the crane a new phrase. As it flew off, it shouted, I'm gonna die now. That line matched this perfectly, much to Ziyu's satisfaction. But Thorn was not pleased. Shut your mouth already. You're just giving this poor, frail teacher more work. With the three clowns gone, he finally had some peace, just enough time to test his own strength. These sharp, rocky peaks shattered with a single slash from him. Wherever his willow blades touched, they severed cleanly. This skill was now at level 3, far from the modest power it had before. Using up 100,000 points seemed fair, as it was both stronger and reached farther, cutting a deep trench with a single swipe. Besides the throwing knives, his illusion skills had just leveled up to become a fantasy world, capable of deceiving others even more effectively. With the level 3 spirit fields, and maybe even your waistline, Bayu would become a zone of shadow and fog. Let human fall into a hallucination and weaken their strength. This is amazing. After conquering the human city, he had collected lightning and ice spirit stones. Not a huge amount, but just enough to use. Now, with the fire spirit stones the panda had brought, he had all 4 types. The sea beasts would soon be coming ashore, and before meeting them, he had to grow even stronger. As for expanding his territory, the Laya mountain range was now marked on the Fog Kingdom map, and next was Bayu in the north. Speaking of the north, it was bitterly cold, with snow falling year-round. Very few humans lived there, but in exchange, it was teeming with strange beasts. The frozen northern lands were one of the most dangerous places, comparable to the deserts, great rivers, and highlands, along with the ice mountains as the top 4 perilous zones. The Laya Mountains served as a foothold for moving northward, so Ziyu took care of it first. From there, they'd gradually move into the ice mountains. This time, the expansion would be led by Glacier, Kuizhou, and Ancient Croc. With these 3 leading the way, he was at ease. Aside from the level 9 spotted dinosaur, the other 2 had reached rank 1, and Croc was about to hit rank 2. How could Ziyu not feel confident? Along with them were Flash the Ant and Blue Mantis, both fierce fighters. The Ant had even set a goal to one day lift a whole mountain, and Blue Mantis backed him up fully. Even though they were a divorced couple, their bond was still there. The pair of lunatics made Ziyu take notice. Blue Mantis had reached level 9, while Flash had quietly reached rank 1. Flash's talents were no small thing. He was hundreds of times stronger than a regular ant. A normal ant could carry food dozens of times its weight, so Flash wanting to lift a mountain didn't seem far-fetched. He was overjoyed at his progress. Being busy lately, he hadn't paid much attention, so it was a pleasant surprise. Flash had also acquired a special skill called power absorption, likely gained from munching on Blue Mantis's head. He could absorb a third of her opponent's power and release it at double strength, which pleased him greatly. This little one was advancing by leaps and bounds. As his followers grew stronger, he couldn't just sit idly. He had to get up and head to the panda's cave to raid its resources. Meanwhile, the 3 leading beasts in the conquest had reached the ice mountains and were encountering more and more unique creatures there, like the snow leopard in Kuizhou's mouth, the snow monkeys being tossed around by Glacier, or the polar bear crushed by Crocodile. The animals here, shaped by the snowy mountains, were all pure white. They posed no problem for Ziyu's 3 powerful beasts, but Snow Mountains had more to offer. Crocodile looked toward the endless range ahead, thinking, we've barely left Laya and have already run into so many snow monkeys. Going deeper, the dangers will only multiply. The spiritual energy in the northern depths must be immense. There's a reason this place ranks among the 4 most dangerous areas. The ruler of the North Mountains hasn't even shown up yet. Elsewhere, also covered in snow, but not in the North Mountains, Ziyu had arrived at the panda's old home. Seeing the blackened root, he knew instantly. It had suddenly become diligent. Following the falcon's guidance, he'd found the place and quickly sank his roots into the ground. Sure enough, there were plenty of fire spirit stones beneath, enough to make his eyes sparkle. Qingzhao had called it a small spirit stone mine, but this amount was more than enough for use. With the stones in hand, he got straight to absorbing them. His roots dug deep, lighting up the ground in a bright glow. The falcon looked on, utterly bewildered, only understanding that its master was playing with some intense rocks. Spiritual energy flowed up in torrents, surrounding the willow tree as he absorbed it greedily, smacking his lips with satisfaction. Bull Demon and Nine Tails, there to escort him, watched as their boss's power surged before their very eyes. It was eye-opening for them, and the falcon, Bull Demon, and Nine Tails were equally stunned. Nine Tails realized this was the effect of absorbing fire spirit stones, and it wanted to train too. It quickly hopped onto a willow branch to absorb the energy along with him, being of the fire element as well. Spiritual energy flowed swiftly into Nine Tails, and Ziyu, seeing it act on its own, was pleased. Its fire attribute would grow ever purer. One tree, one fox, absorbed the spirit stones like this, and Ziyu's spiritual power soon approached 1.9 million. To get even stronger, he'd have to upgrade. Opening his system, he found that leveling up a branch now cost 10,000 points each. Oh my god, what a robbery. He already nearly fainted upgrading 50 branches before, but at rank 3, he had hundreds of branches. After an upgrade, there'd be nothing left. For now, he'd stick with what he had. His level 4 branches were already a menace. Humans facing them had to breathe with oxygen tanks. Once these level 4 branches grew on a rank 4 tree, even extra ventilators wouldn't help them. That would be a natural disaster, and humanity couldn't prevent disasters. They'd be lucky to handle the aftermath. He absorbed the fire spirit stones at full power, endowing his branches with the fire element. Now the branches would wield fire power, precisely spewing flames. Combined with the earth element he'd had, the branches were more durable, worry-free from burning. Returning to the conquest, the 3 leading beasts cleared the path with others following behind. Qingzhao and the troop of apes joined this expansion too. Although they were mainly laborers and builders, they were capable fighters as well, even if a few opponents were beyond their strength. For instance, a blazing red bull suddenly charged at Qingzhao, who couldn't dodge in time, so Little White Snake bit it down for him. The best way to protect was to eliminate the entire enemy team. The snake was still around. Hadn't it been forgotten by the author? It'd been on vacation so long it was no longer a little snake at all. Little White Snake bit the Red Bull, and now there was a red bear roaring loudly, huge and intimidating. But with Little White Snake here, there was no need to worry. Bull Demon couldn't chew the Fire Spirit Stone, so it wandered off somewhere else. After walking for a while, it came across a bush that seemed to be moving. At first, it thought it was a mutated plant, but it turned out to be Guizhou hiding in there. Guizhou looked at Bull Demon in a strange way, like no younger brother ever stared at his elder brother with drool dripping like that. Bull Demon was confused. 8. Why aren't you on the front lines? What are you doing here? Guizhou didn't answer but opened its mouth, looking like it wanted to bite Bull Demon. This one wasn't clean-hearted, but he wasn't scared. Second brother used his gravity manipulation ability to pin Guizhou to the ground and stared at him. What do you want to do? You just joined the company and already thinking of betraying? Lucky for you, I'm being nice. Otherwise, with 9 tails, you'd be dead by now. Guizhou, who was about to do something reckless, was now so scared that he started sweating like he was taking a bath. Ziyu, from a distance, could also feel Bull Demon's rising power, clearly growing stronger. After hitting the stone, 9 tails wanted to test her strength right away. She was eager to head to the front lines. Ziyu told her to bring along a few more idiots, so Thorn and Flash took 2 of their own. Don't worry, I'll leave some fire spirit stones for you, Ziyu decided. When he turned around, he was the only one left absorbing the stone without anyone disrupting him, so he just kept cultivating. While the master was away on his business, the little demons at home had the chance to cause trouble. White Tiger, the panda, and the venomous spider tied up 3 vulture brothers and laughed like idiots, making them cry out loudly. Just as they were having fun, the string snapped. Yep, the boss was back. He knocked the crap out of them, feeling quite satisfied. After dealing with the 3 little ones, he'd handle the troublemakers next. But first, a quick sightseeing tour. In the human zone, Lang Feng was practicing swordplay with great dedication. His black sword, instead of just turning black, now emitted sword energy. He recalled the words of his brother Qingzhao. Ziyu had broken through the human city and brought back countless items. He couldn't believe that he had actually taken over a human city. Thanks to that, Qingzhao brought many supplies for Lang Feng. Lang Feng also remembered that Qingzhao told him his sister's city had been taken over by the mutant beasts and was now in ruins. Thinking about it made his chest tighten with anger. Lang Feng gripped his sword so hard that it disappeared, and without realizing it, he muttered his sister's name, Lang Yu. The reason he hadn't joined Ziyu's company earlier was because of his sister, and now he had no idea whether she was alive or dead. Just when Lang Feng was on the verge of despair, Ziyu appeared and brought him a glimmer of hope. He stood before Lang Feng like a true dragon, ready to grant him a wish. He asked if Lang Feng had a sister, and before he could answer, Ziyu said, "Go see for yourself." Indeed, Ziyu was a thoughtful boss. Aside from White Crane and Honey Badger, who had been tortured both mentally and physically, all the employees were treated with the utmost care. But there was a reason for everything. Those two were just too crazy, so they had to accept it.